Hello, I'm Michael Kelch, and I'll be talking today about LTspice, which is the circuit simulator that we'll be using for this course. LTspice is a free circuit simulator that you can use, and let's take a look about how to put that on your computer. You can look up LTspice in your search. And we can see this is the site we're looking for, analog.com. That's the company that makes it. Get to this page, you can scroll down, you can read a little bit about LTspice, and then you can download the version that's appropriate for your computer. If you've got a 32-bit Windows or 64-bit Windows, or if you're running Mac OS, those are the files that you can use. Now, I only use PC, so I'm not real familiar with the Mac. I'm guessing it's pretty much the same, but if you do have some problems, let me know and we'll try to figure them out. Here's what it looks like after you've installed it. You open it up, this will give you a new window. We'll just look at the menus real quick. Here's the, don't know if you can really see that, but there we go. There, the file menu kind of gives you a new schematic. You can put a new symbol, open something. You can access a different library and some of the old files that you've used. You can also set up your printer, and it also allows for black and white printing. And your view just gives you some different toolbars you can look at. This is what we really want to look at right now, is your control panel and your color preferences, and then the sync, I think, just updates you with the latest version. Right now it's running LTspice number 12. I'm sorry, 17. And so in the control panel here, really don't need to change a lot of things. Some of these things are just how it computes some of the things that we need to do. But if you go to this, I think the first one we really probably will want to look at is the drafting options. So you may want to make some changes here. You can change your font to a different font and your size of your font to different things, and also whether it's bold or not. So those are some of the things that you would probably want to look at possibly changing. The color scheme we'll talk about in a minute. You can go here to change that. Some of these others are, again, sort of how it does its computing. The other thing we want to look at is the waveforms. And here again, the data trace width, that's going to be what gets graphed on your data. I believe it started out as 1. I changed mine to 2 just because the lines are so thin and kind of hard to read, so that might help you. But you can also change the font and some other things. And again, color scheme is also located here. So I'm starting out with 2 on my data trace width. You may find you like something even thicker, but that might be something you want to change. Also in this toolbar was the color preferences. So normally when we go into a plot, we're going to get this. I believe this is the default. And we don't want things printing out like this. It's a lot easier to view with a white background. So we can see right now the trace is the item that it's asking what color do we want, and it's set to green. That's the first trace, and as you add in more things, it will add more, and they'll give you different colors. The main thing we want to look at is the background, though. So in order to change the background, we can just put our cursor there and click on it, and now it gives us the background item. And if we want to change that to all white, we can just put in 255 for all of these, and then we'll get this look. And we can also go down here and change different things. It allows us to change all the things. But the cool thing is you can just click on one of these things. Like if I want to do the trace, I can click on that. I can also go into my schematic and see how things are set up there. If I want to have, if I want to have a comment that I make, that text can be a certain color. These different things all can have, different colors and different. I can also go back to the defaults, and then we can just apply what we want and hit OK. To get started with this, I find it pretty easy to use, but since you've probably been using LTspice, you may like that better. But I think you'll find this is pretty straightforward. So to start a new schematic, we just click on this one here, brings it up. There is a way to show a grid on here too, but to me this just gives me a nice clean look, especially if I'm trying to copy and paste something. First of all, if you want to put a component on, you go to this that looks like sort of like a AND gate, and that's where you're going to get your all your components. Now, it matters what library you have selected. So you can see I've got this library that I created for myself, and the only thing in it is this dot that I made, and that's what it looks like if I place it on my schematic. That's what I want. To stop putting more on, you just hit the escape key, and that'll just bring you back to my main cursor. If I want to get rid of that, I can click these scissors, go down, and sometimes it's tricky cutting small things, a little piece of wire or something like that, trying to figure out which part of the scissors are the cutting part. So again, to get rid of my scissors, I hit escape. That gets me back to a cursor. Okay, back to the components. To get to the main component library, and when you start out, this will be the one that will be there. Probably the only one that you can have will be your LTspice, lib, and sim. And that has all of the things, but the idea is that you could create another folder of your own and have that in here and use those things. Just make sure you have the correct library selected. So let's say we want to start out and we want to put a voltage source in. So I'm going to start typing in voltage, VOL, and you can see it comes up, starts finding things, and that's what I want to use. So this will be the main voltage source that we want to use for most of the things that we're doing. It can be an AC or a DC. As you can see, it tells you up here some of the things that it can do. For some of the other things, not necessarily for this course, but if you did want to use let's just look at so right now we're sort of in this special, see how it came up to this special functions here. So we got this directory, but we're also in this directory that has special functions. And I'm like going, wait a minute, I don't see really what I'm needing here. So I can click on this, double click that, and it brings me sort of the top directory. And now I've got all these little things here that I want to use. So to get to those other directories, say if I wanted to use a op amp, I can double click on that, and now I've gotten all these op amps that are available to me. But now I'm deciding, hey, I don't want to get out of that. I can either click this or double click this double dot, and that gets me back to the main library. So back where we were before, there are a couple things that you can use that you might find beneficial, are these E2 and G and G2. Or like this is a voltage dependent voltage source back when you were drawing your little triangles. This is a voltage dependent voltage source. What was the other one here? Already forgot. So you got a couple of those, and then you've also got these voltage dependent current source and other things like that. So, but the main thing that we're interested in is finding the voltage source, and this is again the main one we're going to use. So we just click OK, and now that allows us to place that. To place, we just click, and then it also automatically now is giving us a second voltage one that we can replace. We could place that somewhere, or we can just go to escape and stop that. Just as in LTspice, we always have to have a ground node. So here's a ground one. Here you could search it in this component library, but it's right here. So just make sure you put one of those in. And then I'm going to hit escape again. Now I want to put, say, a resistor in. That brings me down. And then what I can do is I can use Control, hold down Control and hit R, and it will rotate the orientation of the resistor. So I can do that. So Control plus R will give me that. If I want to put in an inductor here, I can again Control plus R and put that in, and then I can also escape to stop, and then capacitor here, and So it's pretty quick and easy to get these laid out. Again, a lot of it's just what you're used to. Now, if I want to wire these together, I can use this pencil wire here and just kind of stop where you want to start and then click. I'm holding the click button down. You can see it does this, but if I let go of my mouse button somehow, so all right, so we can just go here. So every time I'm getting to one of these, I'm just clicking again, and then click, 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 and then now I've still got the wire. You can see my cursor is a wire, and then click, and then click, and then when I'm done with the wire, then I can hit escape again, and I'm done. So now everything's wired up. I can go ahead. Now I can right click on this R1 and I could change that to R2 if I wanted to, or something else, some other text. I don't believe I can have more than one R2s in there. So if I had, say, two of the identical resistors and I wanted to label them both as R1, I'm not sure if it allows that. So we can rename these with different names. Could type in, I guess, a name like resistor if I wanted to. Now to change the values, I can change this number here. So I'm right clicking, and then you can see the R is in there, but I can just put 10, and it will just put that in. And now that's a 10 ohm resistor. And just like in LTspice, I can use K for 1000 and remember, you have to use MEG for mega. If you use just an M, that'll be a milli. You can use U for micro, 10 to the minus 6, P for pico, F for femto, and A for atta. And let's see. So those are some of the values that you can use. So, let's say we want to put a 10 mega ohm resistor in here, and then we change all these values. For this one, if we right click, we can get this, we can just put a DC value in real quick and we're done. Hit OK. If we want something more, we can go to this advanced page here, and what we see here is if we want the DC value, we just want to have one selected there, and we put like 5 volts. That's all, and hit OK, and that will give us our 5 volt DC. If we want something else, we can click these values here. So if we want a sine wave, we can come and ask us, do we want to have a DC offset? Usually I'm going to leave that blank. I might have an amplitude of 20, maybe a frequency. Now remember, this frequency is in hertz and not radians per second, so you might have to do some calculations, but let's just say we wanted 60 hertz. We can also do some things, time delays, change our phase angle here, make it 30 degrees, and some other things. If we're just doing a transient analysis, this is what we're going to want to do. If we're going to do a AC analysis, then we're going to just come over here and we're going to put a 1 in here. If we don't do that, it's going to tell us something about do AC1, and that's what we're talking about here. Put 1 in the AC amplitude if you're running a simulation like that. So I've got this number here. I could change this to 2 millihenries. Could change this to 0.25, say picofarad. All right, and then we've got, so now I could run a simulation on this. So to start a simulation, I'm going to, and of course, if you want to save, don't forget about that. Here's my run and stop simulation. These zooms are just to zoom in. This is zoom to the full extent of your page. We talked about the scissors. You can copy and paste. Parts are all of it. So let's try running a simulation. So we're going to look at running a transient simulation. So we're going to, when do we want to stop? Let's say 100 milliseconds. If we want to wait before we get data, in other words, we know there's a transient effect we don't really want to look at, we could say, you know, I don't want to see any data before, say, 5 milliseconds. And then we can set a maximum time set. We don't need to do really most of these. We don't want to. And we can hit OK. And our Windows simulation window will pop up. And looks like I thought I had changed my waveforms to, no, I could do it there, but let's just go to color preferences. And, no, I guess I never applied it. So let's go back and change that. Apply. Okay, now we got, so from here now I can pick things just like you did with your probe. I can say, hey, let's look at this voltage here. What does that look like? What does the current through this inductor look like? Now, one of the things you have to be careful about, not sure if this is how LTspice is, but so I've got my voltage here, and that's my green trace, and that scale is here. And then when I pulled up my current, now I've got another scale over here, so it kind of is a little bit misleading because it makes it look like your current and your voltage have the same amplitude, but that's not the case at all. Of course, they're different units, first of all, but you know, it kind of gives you the impression that they're the same and not really. Now you can go in here, right-clicking this scale, and I can change sort of the scale by changing these numbers in here, and I can also do that here on this bottom of the scale. And you can zoom in, so you don't have to click the zoom. You can just put your cursor up here when it changes to that cross. You can kind of go in here, and if I just want to look at this part here, I can do that. The other thing I can do is I can get up here on my trace, and I can right click that. I can just delete this specific trace. I can change the color. I can tell it I want the cursor put on there, which we'll talk about in a second. Anyway, so let's talk about the cursor here. So if I right click here and I put this 1 on here and hit OK, I can now, I get this window here that tells me the position of my cursor. And as I move my cursor up here, for some reason it's not working. All right, so now I've got my cursor, and you know, it doesn't matter where I move this, it's going to be on that green line. And as you can see, I've got actually 2 cursors now, one on they're both on this green line here. And I can kind of measure the difference. So if I wanted to go and look at, see, like put it on the peak of one and on the other, I could look at, kind of measure the frequencies using this difference column here. And I can also see where my positions are. Okay, well, I don't want to get too long-winded here, which I already have. So let's just leave it at that. There's lots of more stuff you can do with this simulation software, of course. But that'll kind of get you started. If you have some questions, please email me. Thank you.